The valley stretched endlessly before Marcus and Lyra, a vast expanse of jagged rocks and alien flora that seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of strange flowers and the metallic tang of distant rivers. Marcus knew that every step they took could bring danger, wild predators, hostile patrols, or worse, but he refused to let fear stop him. Lyra clung to his side, small hands gripping his armor, trusting him completely. "Stay close," Marcus whispered. His voice was calm, though his senses were sharp, scanning every shadow, every movement. Lyra nodded, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and determination. She had survived the collapse, the storm, and now she faced a world that was both beautiful and deadly. As they moved cautiously, Marcus noticed tracks in the soft soil, large, clawed prints that hinted at a predator moving nearby. He motioned for Lyra to crouch behind a rock while he examined the tracks. They were fresh, and the spacing suggested a creature much larger than himself. He tightened his grip on his blaster, ready to defend her if necessary. The sound of wings flapping echoed from above, and Marcus looked up. Shadowy figures moved swiftly through the sky, their forms sleek and predatory. He realized these were native hunters, creatures that roamed the valley in search of prey. He knew they could outrun him, but their attention had not yet turned toward him. "Quiet," he murmured, holding up a finger. Lyra understood instantly, falling silent and pressing herself against the rock. Marcus led her slowly along the edge of a ridge, keeping the predators in sight while remaining out of reach. Every step required focus, every movement calculated. Hours passed like this, tense and quiet. Marcus taught Lyra to move softly, to observe without being noticed, to read the signs of danger around them. In turn, Lyra began to share her knowledge, pointing to plants that were safe to touch, water sources that could sustain them, and paths that offered better cover. Marcus listened, impressed by her intelligence and quick learning. "You know a lot about this place," he said quietly. Lyra tilted her head. Her eyes glimmered with pride, and she made a soft, musical sound. Marcus understood the meaning without words. She had grown up in a world of danger and survival, learning from the best. Despite her youth, she was wise beyond her years. They reached a narrow canyon as dawn approached, the rising sun casting long shadows across the rocks. Marcus paused to catch his breath and let Lyra rest. He scanned the canyon walls, noting the movement of patrols below. Alien soldiers armed and alert were searching the area, likely looking for the missing princess. "We have to move carefully," Marcus said. Lyra nodded, gripping his hand tighter. He considered their options. There was a path along the canyon edge that would take them around the patrols, but it was narrow and exposed. "A fall could be fatal. Ready?" he asked. Lyra gave a small nod. They began the slow, careful crossing. Marcus led, guiding her steps, watching every loose rock, every potential hazard. Halfway across, a rock shifted under her foot. She gasped, teetering for a moment. Marcus caught her quickly, holding her steady. "Easy, Lyra, you're okay," he reassured her. She smiled faintly, her fear easing under his calm presence. Once across, they found temporary shelter in a small alcove above the canyon floor. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment to rest, observing Lyra as she crouched beside him, eyes wide with curiosity. She pointed to the valley below, making soft sounds and gestures. Marcus guessed she was telling him something important. "They're watching," he murmured, understanding her warning. His eyes followed her gestures and scanned the patrols below. They were cautious, moving systematically but clearly searching for someone. Marcus knew they could not stay in one place for long. He rationed their remaining water and food, giving Lyra a small portion. She accepted it with careful hands, mimicking his movements. Marcus smiled faintly. Despite the danger, moments like this reminded him of what he was fighting for. He was not just surviving, he was protecting someone precious. As the day wore on, Marcus led Lyra through a maze of rocky outcrops and alien vegetation. They avoided the patrols, slipping through shadows and using natural cover to remain unseen. Marcus marveled at Lyra's ability to understand the terrain, to anticipate dangers and to move silently. She was learning from him, and he was learning from her. By nightfall, they reached a forested area, dense with tall, luminescent plants that bathed the ground in a soft glow. Marcus allowed himself a brief smile. The forest offered better cover and a chance to rest. They made camp under a large tree, its leaves shimmering faintly in the starlight. Marcus kept watch while Lyra slept. He thought about her family, about the queen who must be searching desperately for her daughter. He wondered how she had survived this long, how she had managed to stay alive in such a dangerous world. Marcus felt a surge of pride. She was brave, clever, and resilient. The next morning, they continued their journey. Marcus noticed Lyra pointing toward a distant ridge, making soft sounds and gestures. He realized she was directing him to a safer path, one that avoided open areas and reduced the risk of patrols. He followed her guidance, impressed by her instincts and knowledge. As they moved, Marcus taught Lyra to recognize threats, how to spot movement in the shadows, how to listen for the faintest sounds, how to use the environment to their advantage. Lyra absorbed everything quickly, her confidence growing with each passing hour. She began to move with purpose, not just following Marcus, but anticipating his actions and understanding the dangers around them. Their journey was not without challenges. They encountered wild creatures, predators that stalked them through the forest, glowing eyes watching from the underbrush. Marcus taught Lyra to stay calm, to hide, and to move silently. When a large beast charged, Marcus intervened, using his blaster to drive it away while Lyra watched in awe. She understood the danger and the necessity of courage. By the end of the second day, Marcus realized that their bond had deepened. Lyra no longer clung to him out of fear. She followed him out of trust and respect. She looked to him for guidance, but she was also learning to navigate the world on her own. Marcus felt a sense of pride and responsibility that went beyond duty. As they rested near a small river, Marcus reflected on the journey so far. They had survived storms, predators, and hostile patrols. They had grown stronger together, relying on each other for survival. Marcus knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater, but he felt ready. With Lyra by his side, he believed they could overcome anything. That night, under the twin moons, Marcus watched over Lyra as she slept. He thought about the queen, about the importance of the child he was protecting. He realized that his mission was no longer just about survival. It was about ensuring the safety of someone who could shape the future of her world. In the quiet of the night, Marcus made a silent promise. He would protect Lyra no matter the cost. He would guide her through the dangers of this world and ensure she reached her people safely. And in doing so, he would prove that humanity, even in the face of overwhelming odds, could rise to greatness through courage, compassion, and determination. The forest whispered around them, the stars shimmered above, and Marcus felt a quiet determination settle in his heart. They had come far, but the journey was far from over. Together, he and Lyra would face whatever challenges lay ahead, forging a bond that would endure, shaping the destiny of two worlds in ways neither could yet imagine. The dust storm swept across the jagged plains of Aranthia, turning the red rocks into shifting shadows under the dim twin suns. Corporal Marcus Hale gritted his teeth as he trudged forward, his boots sinking into the loose ash-like soil. The mission had gone wrong from the start. His transport ship had been hit by enemy fire, leaving him stranded on this hostile alien world. Alone, exhausted, and armed with little more than his sidearm and his instincts, Marcus wondered if he would ever leave this place alive. Through the haze of the storm, a faint sound reached him, a high-pitched cry, weak but persistent. He froze. The terrain around him was littered with debris from what appeared to be a recent battle, shattered vehicles, scorched craters, and twisted remains of alien technology. He adjusted his visor and scanned the horizon. The sound came again, this time clearer, a terrified voice crying out for help. Marcus's heart quickened. He was a soldier trained for combat, for strategy and survival, but he had never been trained to ignore a child in danger. The voice came from a collapsed structure ahead, a building that had been reduced to rubble in some unseen explosion. He moved cautiously, keeping low, hand on his blaster, every sense alert. The debris shifted under his feet as he approached the ruins, and then he saw her, a small figure trapped under a fallen beam, eyes wide with fear and tears streaking her alien features. She was tiny, no older than 8 or 9, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the dim light. Her elongated limbs were twisted awkwardly beneath the rubble. "Hey, I've got you," Marcus shouted, though he knew the language might not matter. The child looked up, her eyes locking onto his, and something unspoken passed between them. Desperation, hope, trust. He dropped his pack and rushed forward, prying the heavy beam with all his strength. Sweat stung his eyes as he strained, muscles burning. The child whimpered and he whispered, Almost there. Stay still. I've got you. Another rock shifted, threatening to trap her further. But Marcus pushed on, gritting his teeth. Finally, with a final heave, the beam lifted just enough for him to reach under and pull the child free. She gasped, clutching him tightly, small hands pressing against his armor. Her grip was surprisingly strong, as if she knew that letting go could mean her end. "You're safe now," Marcus said, panting, though he knew safe was relative on a planet like this. The storm had grown stronger, and distant howls, maybe creatures, maybe hostile forces, echoed across the plains. He helped her stand, supporting her small body as they moved away from the ruins. The child's eyes darted nervously around, and she pointed at the horizon, chattering in a language Marcus did not understand. He shook his head, trying to reassure her. Gesturing, he pointed back toward him, then toward a cluster of rocks offering some shelter. Slowly, cautiously, she followed. As they moved, Marcus observed her more closely. Her skin had a faint glow, and her hair, if it could be called that, was almost liquid in appearance, flowing and shifting like a living ribbon. Her eyes were large, dark, and intelligent, scanning everything with a curiosity that mirrored his own. Despite her small size and apparent vulnerability, she carried herself with a quiet dignity, a confidence in her presence that seemed beyond her years. They reached a shallow cave just as the storm intensified. Inside, they huddled against the wall. Marcus set his pack down and rummaged through it. Finding a small ration of water and food, he offered it to her. She hesitated, then took it with careful fingers, mimicking his movements. He smiled faintly despite the tension. "I'm Marcus," he said. "What's your name?" She tilted her head, confused, then spoke softly. "Lyra." Her voice was musical, delicate, yet carried a tone of authority. Marcus nodded. Lyra, the princess of some alien kingdom, he guessed, though he didn't yet know it. The storm raged on outside, and Marcus kept watch. He knew this planet was alive with dangers, creatures, patrols, maybe worse. He also knew that hiding was only a temporary solution. Lyra needed protection, and he was it, whether he liked it or not. As the hours passed, he learned to read her gestures and expressions. She could point out dangers, warn of noises in the distance, and even indicate a path that might be safer. In turn, he showed her how to move quietly, how to stay low, how to watch the skies for predators. A bond formed between them, silent but undeniable, a connection forged in survival. By the time the storm finally began to wane, Marcus had made a decision. He could try to signal for extraction, but the child could not be left behind. Whoever she was important. He sensed it, the way she carried herself, the way other creatures seemed to avoid her presence. It was clear she was no ordinary child. With the storm dying down, he led her cautiously through the rocky terrain. They moved slowly, avoiding open areas, sticking to shadows. Lyra's small hands clung to his, and he felt an unfamiliar warmth, a sense of responsibility that went beyond duty. He was not just a soldier now. He was a protector. Night fell, and the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting pale light across the jagged landscape. Marcus found another shelter, a natural alcove in the rock face. He lit a small, controlled flame for warmth. Lyra watched the flickering light with fascination, her eyes reflecting the fire like tiny mirrors. "You're brave," she whispered, and though he didn't understand all the words, he felt the meaning. She trusted him, and that trust was heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. The hours stretched on. Marcus stayed awake while she slept, listening to the faint sounds of the planet, the rustle of unseen creatures, the whisper of wind through the rocks, the occasional distant roar that made him tense. But he did not falter. He had made a choice, and he would see it through. When dawn finally broke, painting the horizon in shades of orange and red, Marcus was already moving, guiding Lyra toward safer ground. He had no map, no allies, only instinct and determination. Every step was a gamble. But with her small hand in his, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than any fear. They reached the edge of a plateau overlooking a valley below. From this height, Marcus could see movement in the distance, figures patrolling, scanning the terrain. He signaled Lyra to stay low. She crouched beside him, eyes wide but calm, trusting him completely. Marcus took a deep breath. The next move would be dangerous. He would have to cross the open valley, evade detection, and find a route that would take them closer to safety. But he did not hesitate. With Lyra at his side, he felt a surge of resolve. He would protect this child, whatever it took. As they began their careful descent into the valley, Marcus realized something profound. He was not just a soldier stranded on a hostile planet. He was a human capable of compassion, courage, and sacrifice. And in that moment, he understood that this small alien girl had given him something far greater than survival. A reason to fight not just for himself, but for someone else. The wind carried the distant cries and the faint scent of alien flora, and Marcus knew the journey ahead would be perilous. Yet with Lyra at his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay before them. Somewhere in the distance, danger waited, but so did hope, and Marcus would ensure that hope did not die. Together they moved through the valley, shadows among shadows, forging a bond that would shape not only their destinies, but the fate of worlds. The courtyard was quiet now, a heavy stillness settling over the palace grounds. Marcus stood beside Lyra, his eyes scanning the towering spires of the Queen's fortress. Guards remained vigilant, their attention never wavering, but there was a difference in the air, a change that Marcus could feel. The Queen had not spoken yet the tension that had gripped everyone began to soften. Lyra tugged at his armor, her small hand urgent but gentle. She led him toward the grand hall where the Queen waited. Marcus followed cautiously, aware that every step brought him closer to both judgment and recognition. He knew that what he had done, saving her daughter, was a dangerous act in their eyes, but he had no choice. Courage, after all, often came with risk. The hall was vast, its ceiling stretching high above, adorned with glowing crystals that cast soft light over marble floors. The Queen sat upon a throne, regal and imposing, her gaze fixed firmly on him. Around her, advisors whispered quietly, their expressions a mix of curiosity, caution, and disbelief. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped forward, careful not to make sudden movements. He lowered his head slightly in respect, a gesture he hoped the Queen would understand. Lyra ran ahead and climbed onto her mother's lap, her small face filled with both excitement and relief. She spoke rapidly, explaining how Marcus had found her, saved her from the collapsing structure, and guided her through perilous terrain to safety. The Queen listened intently, her dark eyes studying Marcus as her daughter spoke. Marcus stood still, silently letting Lyra tell the story. He felt a mixture of fear and hope. In this moment, he understood that actions spoke louder than words, and he had acted with the purest intent. He had not saved her for reward, for glory, or for recognition. He had saved her because it was the right thing to do. When Lyra finished, she looked up at him with a soft smile, as if urging him to remain calm. The Queen's expression shifted slightly. She gestured for him to approach. Marcus moved forward carefully, every step measured. The hall was silent except for the soft echo of his boots on the polished floor. "Marcus," the Queen spoke in a deep, melodic voice, her tone commanding yet calm. Marcus straightened and bowed slightly. The language barrier was still present, but her eyes conveyed understanding. She studied him as if weighing his very soul, testing his courage and integrity. Then she gestured to Lyra. The child climbed down from the throne and approached Marcus, taking his hand in both of hers. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. Marcus felt a warmth in his chest that he had not expected. In that moment, he realized that the Queen's respect and the child's trust were rewards far greater than any treasure he could imagine. The Queen rose from her throne, moving toward Marcus with grace and authority. She extended her hand, not as a monarch demanding obedience, but as a gesture of recognition. Marcus took it cautiously, bowing slightly. A hush fell over the hall as the Queen's advisors watched closely, waiting for her decision. "You have risked everything to save my daughter," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "You could have ignored her, left her to her fate, and returned to your own world. But you did not. You chose courage over fear, compassion over indifference. For this you shall be honored." Marcus felt a mixture of relief and humility. He had faced danger countless times as a soldier, but this was different. This was recognition not for skill in battle, but for character, for humanity. The Queen's words filled him with a quiet pride. Lyra squeezed his hand and Marcus knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "Thank you," he whispered, though he knew she already understood. Her smile was enough. The Queen then gestured to her advisors, who stepped forward carrying ceremonial items. a sash of shimmering fabric, engraved with symbols of protection and honor, and a medallion that gleamed with a radiant light. Marcus received the items with reverence. The sash was draped over his shoulders and the medallion placed against his chest. The weight of the symbols was more than physical. It carried meaning, recognition of bravery and virtue that transcended worlds. "You shall wear these as a protector of my people," the queen said, "not as a weapon, not as a conqueror, but as a guardian. Your courage has bridged the distance between our worlds, and your actions shall be remembered for generations." Marcus stood quietly, feeling the significance of the moment. He had been a soldier, trained to fight and survive, but never had he imagined receiving such an honor. The queen's recognition was not just for saving a child. It was for showing that humanity could rise above fear, above self-interest, and act with true courage and compassion. The queen then gestured for Lyra to speak. She stepped forward, her small voice filled with sincerity. "He saved me," she said simply. "He showed me kindness and strength when I had no hope. I trust him, and I know he is brave." The words were simple, but they carried power. The queen nodded, acknowledging her daughter's wisdom and insight. Marcus felt a surge of emotion. This child, whom he had protected through storms, predators, and hostile territory, was now the bridge that connected him to the queen and her people. After a moment, the queen spoke again, this time in a softer tone. "You may choose to stay in my city or return to your world. But know this, your actions have changed how we view humanity. You have proven that bravery, compassion, and loyalty exist beyond our own kind. You have earned our trust." Marcus hesitated. He had survived a journey that tested his body, mind, and spirit. The thought of returning home was comforting, yet he understood the weight of what he had done. His actions had opened a door between two worlds, a door built on trust and respect. He realized that the reward he had received was not merely the ceremonial items, but the knowledge that humanity could be honored and respected by others in the universe. Lyra tugged at his sleeve, urging him to stay close. Marcus knelt again, embracing her briefly. "We made it," he whispered. She smiled, her eyes reflecting both relief and joy. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had kept his promise to protect her. The queen then approached again, placing her hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Your courage shall be remembered," she said, "and your name shall be spoken in tales of honor, so that our people and yours may know the value of bravery, compassion, and humanity." Marcus stood tall, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. He had faced dangers that would have broken lesser men, navigated terrain filled with predators and hostile forces, and protected a child who represented the future of an entire species. Yet the reward was not wealth or power. It was recognition, respect, and the knowledge that his actions had forged a bond between worlds. The queen signaled for Marcus to accompany her to a council chamber, where representatives of her people awaited. He followed, mindful of every step, yet his confidence had grown. He had proven that humanity, even in its simplest form, could rise to greatness through courage, integrity, and selflessness. In the council chamber, Marcus observed the leaders of the alien species, their expressions curious and respectful. They spoke in low tones, discussing his deeds and the significance of his actions. Though he could not understand all their words, the tone conveyed admiration. The queen gestured for him to speak, and he simply nodded in acknowledgement. His presence, his actions, and his character spoke louder than any words could. For hours, Marcus remained with the council, sharing in their discussions, observing their customs, and learning about their culture. Lyra stayed close, translating where she could, her trust in him unwavering. Marcus realized that his journey had evolved beyond survival. He was no longer just a soldier stranded on an alien world. He was a symbol of humanity's potential, a bridge between two species and a living testament to courage and compassion. As the day drew to a close, the queen dismissed the council and invited Marcus to walk with her in the palace gardens. The setting sun bathed the crystalline trees in golden light, casting long shadows that danced across the paths. Marcus walked beside Lyra and the queen, feeling a sense of peace he had not known in months. "You have done more than save a child," the queen said softly. "You have shown us the best of humanity. Your reward is not in wealth or titles, but in the trust and friendship you have earned. That is more valuable than any treasure in the universe." Marcus nodded, humbled by her words. He understood now that the true reward was the bond he had formed with Lyra and the Queen, the trust he had earned, and the knowledge that humanity could be respected and honored across the stars. As night fell, Marcus stood with Lyra and the Queen, looking out over the city that stretched below. Stars glittered in the sky and a gentle breeze rustled through the crystalline trees. Marcus felt a quiet pride, knowing that he had fulfilled his duty, protected the child, and earned a place of honor in a world far from his own. He looked at Lyra, who smiled up at him, her trust and admiration clear. Marcus knew that their journey was not over. But he also knew that they had overcome the greatest challenge, proving that courage, compassion, and humanity could rise above any obstacle. And in that moment, Marcus realized that the reward he had received was greater than anything he could have imagined. It was not a medal or a title, but the knowledge that his actions had made a difference, had forged bonds across worlds, and had shown that humanity could shine brightly even in the darkest of places. The morning sun rose slowly over the alien city, its light reflecting on the crystal towers and painting the sky in shades of gold and blue. Marcus stood on one of the balconies of the Queen's palace, staring out across the vast horizon. For the first time in a long while, he felt calm. The endless battles, the survival in the wilderness, the uncertainty of every day, all of it seemed far away now. Behind him, the soft footsteps of Lyra echoed as she ran toward him. She clutched a small object in her hands, her eyes bright with excitement. "For you," she said in her language, handing it to him. Marcus looked down and saw a pendant shaped like a star, carved from crystal. It glowed faintly in the morning light. He smiled and gently placed it around his neck. "Thank you," he whispered. She giggled and leaned against his side, the bond between them stronger than words could express. Soon the Queen entered the balcony. She walked with her usual grace, her presence both powerful and warm. She studied Marcus for a moment, then spoke in a calm tone. "The council has agreed. You may stay here as one of us or return to your own people. The choice is yours." Marcus turned back to the horizon, his thoughts heavy. A part of him longed to stay. He had found peace here, and the trust he had built with Lyra and the Queen was unlike anything he had known. But another part of him remembered his home, his people, his duty as a human. His world was waiting, and they needed to know what had happened here. He faced the Queen. "I cannot stay," he said softly, though he knew she could understand the meaning from his tone and expression. "My people must know. They must learn that your world is not a threat, but a place of honor and hope." The Queen nodded, her eyes steady. "I understand. But know this, wherever you go, you will always be remembered here. Your courage has written your name in our history." Marcus bowed slightly, humbled by her words. Lyra's smile faded, and she held onto his hand tightly. "You will come back?" she asked, her voice small, almost trembling. He knelt beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I promise," he said. "No matter how far I go, I will return." She hugged him, her small arms holding on as if she never wanted to let go. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that moment, knowing it was one of the hardest choices of his life. Later that day, the Queen led Marcus to the great chamber, where a portal shimmered with energy. It was not made by human hands, but by the ancient technology of her people. The glowing gateway pulsed softly, waiting to carry him back across the stars. The council gathered once more, and guards lined the chamber. Everyone's eyes were on Marcus as he stood before the portal. He felt the medallion against his chest, the sash across his shoulders, and the pendant from Lyra hanging around his neck. These were more than symbols, they were reminders of trust, honor, and bonds that reached beyond species. The Queen spoke again, her voice carrying strength. "Go, Marcus of Earth. Carry our story with you. Tell your people what you have seen. Tell them of courage, of compassion, of unity." Marcus bowed deeply. "I will," he said. He turned to Lyra one last time. She ran forward and hugged him tightly. He lifted her up for a moment, holding her as if she were his own family. Then he set her down gently. The portal's light grew brighter. Marcus took one last look at the Queen, at Lyra, at the city that had accepted him, and then stepped through. The sensation was strange, light surrounding him, pulling him through space and time. For a moment he felt weightless, as if he were drifting among the stars. Then the light faded, and he stood once again on the soil of his own world. The landscape was different but familiar, the rocky cliffs of Earth's frontier outpost. Soldiers rushed forward, their weapons raised until they recognized him. Their shouts filled the air, voices of disbelief and relief. "Marcus, he's alive!" They gathered around him, asking questions, pulling him toward safety. Marcus tried to speak, but his mind was still on Lyra, on the Queen, on the city he had left behind. Yet he knew he had a duty now. He had to share the truth. In the days that followed, Marcus told his commanders everything. At first, they doubted him. They listened with suspicion, believing his words were perhaps the ramblings of a soldier lost too long. But then he showed them the medallion, the sash, and the pendant glowing faintly in the dark. These objects were unlike anything Earth had seen, proof of his journey. Slowly, the commanders began to believe. Reports spread. The story of Marcus, the soldier who saved the alien queen's daughter and was honored by her people, moved through human ranks like wildfire. Soldiers spoke his name with respect. Civilians heard tales of him and began to see a new possibility for humanity among the stars. Weeks passed, and Marcus became a figure of recognition, though he did not seek fame. He spoke not of glory but of unity. He told them of the Queen's wisdom, of Lyra's innocence, of the kindness and trust that had been given to him. He urged them to see beyond fear, beyond suspicion, to a future where humans and aliens could stand together as allies. The leaders of Earth listened. Discussions began. For the first time in generations, the idea of peace between species was not dismissed as fantasy, but considered a path worth following. Marcus's voice carried weight, not because of his rank, but because of his actions. He had lived the truth he now shared. At night, when the noise of the world grew quiet, Marcus often found himself staring at the stars. He thought of Lyra, wondering if she was safe, if she missed him as much as he missed her. He thought of the Queen, of the promise he had made to return. He held the crystal pendant tightly, its glow a reminder that their bond was still alive, even across the endless distance. Months later, an agreement was reached. A message would be sent across the stars, not of war, but of peace. And when the humans prepared their mission, they asked Marcus to lead it, not as a soldier, but as a representative of humanity's courage and compassion. Standing once more before a vessel ready to pierce the skies, Marcus felt the same mixture of fear and hope he had felt when stepping through the portal. But this time he was not alone. He carried with him the hopes of his people and the trust of another world. The engines roared, the vessel rose, and Marcus looked out into the stars. Somewhere out there, Lyra was waiting, the Queen was watching, and a future of unity was possible. He would keep his promise. For Marcus, the true reward was not the medallion or the sash, nor even the respect he had earned. The true reward was knowing that one act of courage, saving a child, had changed the course of two civilizations. As the stars stretched before him, Marcus whispered softly to himself, "Humanity is more than survival. Humanity is hope." And with that he smiled, ready for the journey ahead. The palace no longer felt safe. Whispers had turned into shadows, and shadows had turned into threats. Lyra could feel the change in the air. Every corridor seemed colder, every noble's glance sharper. She knew something was coming, though no one spoke openly of it. Daniel Hayes noticed it too. He had spent enough of his life navigating dangerous places to recognize when eyes were watching, when steps echoed a little too close behind, when silence carried more meaning than words. He stayed near Lyra whenever possible, determined not to let harm come to her. The Queen, calm and composed as always, spoke little about the unrest, but she saw more than she revealed. She understood the court's games, and she also knew that Lyra's return had disrupted balances of power. Not everyone wanted the princess back in her rightful place. Some wanted her gone forever. One night, Lyra could not sleep. She wandered to the palace gardens, the same ones she had visited often to find peace. The stars shone above, reminding her of the lonely nights she had once endured on distant worlds. She was not alone now, yet the same feeling of danger pressed against her heart. Daniel appeared quietly behind her, as if he had been expecting her. "You should not be out here alone," he said softly. She turned, surprised, then gave a faint smile. "I thought I could find peace here, but even in these gardens I feel the weight of their eyes." Daniel's face hardened. "Because they are watching. Some of them would prefer you gone. I hear the whispers too." Lyra lowered her gaze. "They do not believe I belong here," Daniel shook his head. "That's not true. You belong more than any of them. What they fear is change. You are proof of survival, of resilience. You remind them that the world does not bend to their control. That frightens them. She looked at him with determination. Then I must show them strength. Not just for myself, but for my mother, for the Empire. Before Daniel could reply, a shadow moved in the distance. Both of them froze. Figures emerged slowly from behind the tall hedges, their steps silent, their movements deliberate. There were 5 of them, cloaked in dark robes, each carrying slender blades that glinted under the starlight. Daniel stepped forward immediately, his hand reaching for the small sidearm he carried. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. Kalira's heart pounded, but she obeyed. The assassins closed in, their voices low and menacing. "The human dies first," one of them hissed. "The girl will follow." Daniel raised his weapon, but he knew it would not be enough. 5 against 1 were odds too steep, especially in unfamiliar territory. Still, he stood his ground. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The first assassin lunged. Daniel fired, the sound echoing through the garden, striking the attacker down. The others rushed forward. Daniel fought with quick reflexes, blocking one blade, shoving another attacker aside. But there were too many. Kalira felt fear claw at her chest, but something inside her broke free. Not weakness, but courage. She grabbed a heavy branch from the ground and struck one assassin across the back, surprising him enough for Daniel to push forward. The fight was desperate. Daniel took a cut across his arm, but he ignored the pain, moving with relentless determination. Kalira swung again, striking another assassin's wrist and knocking the blade away. Suddenly, guards arrived, alerted by the noise. The assassins realized they were outnumbered and fled into the night, leaving 2 of their number behind. Breathing hard, Daniel lowered his weapon, his shirt stained with blood from the wound. Kalira rushed to him. "You are hurt." He shook his head, though his face was pale. "I'll live. More important, you're safe." The queen arrived moments later, her guards surrounding her. She looked at the fallen attackers, then at her daughter and the human who stood beside her. For the first time, true anger flashed in her eyes. "They dared to strike within my palace," she said coldly. "They dared to threaten my child." Kalira stepped forward. "Mother, Daniel saved me. Without him, I might not be standing here." The queen's gaze softened as she looked at him. "So I see." The next day, the great hall was filled once more. This time, the queen had called for every noble, every advisor, every council member. The tension was palpable. Daniel stood at Kalira's side despite his injury, refusing to be kept away. The queen's voice carried through the hall, sharp and unyielding. "Last night, assassins entered these walls. They sought to end the life of my daughter. They sought to silence her return and to strike at the crown itself. They failed." Whispers swept through the hall, nobles exchanging uneasy glances. It was Daniel Hayes, a human, who stood between Kalira and death. The queen continued. "It was he who defended her when others plotted against her. Some among you question why I trust him. Some among you despise that a human walks our halls. But last night, while nobles whispered and schemed, a human acted with courage." She turned, looking directly at Daniel. "You returned my daughter to me. You stood by her when danger struck. For that you have my eternal gratitude." Daniel bowed his head respectfully. "I only did what was right, Your Majesty." The queen looked at Kalira, her expression softening. "And you, my daughter, have shown courage as well. You did not cower. You did not falter. You fought for yourself and you fought for your future. That is the spirit of a true heir." Kalira's chest swelled with pride, though she remained humble. "I only wished to live to protect what I had found again. My home, my family." The queen raised her voice once more. "Let it be known throughout the empire. Kalira is my daughter, my blood and my heir. She is the future of this throne. Any who deny her deny me." The hall fell silent. No one dared speak against her. Then the queen added, her tone firm and deliberate, "And let it be remembered that humanity, though small in number and far from our stars, has shown strength we cannot ignore. In Daniel Hayes I have seen loyalty, courage, and honor. From this day forward, he is not merely a visitor in our empire. He is a friend of the crown." Gasps echoed through the room. Some nobles looked shocked, others furious, but none could challenge the queen's decree. Daniel stood stunned, but he recovered quickly, bowing once again. "You honor me greatly, Your Majesty." The queen nodded. "It is honor well earned." Kalira's heart lifted. She felt acceptance not just from her mother, but from the empire itself. She knew the road ahead would not be without challenges, But she also knew she was no longer alone. After the ceremony, she and Daniel walked through the palace gardens once more. The air was calmer, the shadows less threatening. "You risked your life for me," Kalira said softly. "Why?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Because you deserve to live. Because you deserve a future. And because, somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as just someone I was helping. You became family." Her eyes shone with emotion. "Then I am lucky to have found you." He looked up at the stars. "Maybe we both are." That night, Kalira stood beside her mother on the palace balcony, looking out over the city lights of the Empire's capital. The people below sang and celebrated, the news of her recognition spreading fast. The queen placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "I thought I had lost you forever, yet here you are, stronger than I could have imagined. And you returned not only yourself but brought with you a reminder that even the smallest voice, even the most unexpected ally can change everything." Kalira leaned against her mother, feeling warmth and belonging. She looked out at the stars. The same stars that had once seemed so distant and lonely. Now they felt alive, full of promise. Daniel stood quietly behind them, watching the two figures against the starlight. He had come from a small world far away, with no power or influence, yet he had given an empire back its heir. Humanity might be small in the eyes of the galaxy, but in that moment, Daniel Hayes proved that sometimes the smallest spark could light the largest flame. And so the story of the lost princess did not end with sorrow, but with return, courage, and hope. The queen had her daughter once more. The empire had its future, and humanity had its place, not through fleets or weapons, but through the courage of one human who refused to turn away.